The vast hall of the Galactic Council stretched impossibly wide, its obsidian floors reflecting the holographic displays of 1,000 worlds that danced across the ceiling. Jake Morrison smoothed down his formal diplomatic attire, earth blue with silver trim, as he made his way toward the central speaking platform. 12,000 years of council history surrounded him in architecture designed to humble, to remind newer species of their place in the cosmic hierarchy. Humanity had been the newest member for nearly 80 years now. 80 years of fighting for scraps, of being patted on the head and told to wait their turn. Jake had spent 15 of those years as Earth's ambassador, mastering every protocol, every formality, and, more importantly, every loophole in the Council's labyrinthine rulebook. Today, that knowledge would either save human lives or condemn them. Ambassador Morrison of Sol System, Earth Prime, announced the Kel Protocol officer, its crystalline voice resonating through the chamber. Addressing the Council on Petition 2475E-3117, Protection and Resource Rights in the Kepler System, Jake stepped onto the obsidian pedestal. It adjusted to his height automatically, raising him to the optimal speaking position. He looked out at the assembled representatives of 500 galactic civilizations. Most appeared bored. Some were actively engaged in side conversations. Only a handful, the Alterans among them, humanity's supposed allies, showed any sign of interest. High Counselor Thex, the Rhodian representative who had made no secret of his disdain for humanity, stared down from the highest tier with 7 of his 8 eyes. The 8th, as always, remained fixed on a personal data stream, visible only to him. "Honorable representatives," Jake began, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "I come before you today with urgency. For the 3rd time this standard year, human colonies in the Kepler system have suffered devastating attacks from pirate forces operating from the asteroid belt, designated KX-594. These attacks have claimed 7,000 lives and disrupted critical supply chains for 15 worlds, including 3 non-human settlements under our protection." A ripple of whispers passed through the chamber. "The evidence package before you documents these incidents in full accordance with Council verification protocols," Jake continued. "Earth requests permission to establish a permanent defensive presence in the asteroid field, and the right to extract resources necessary for constructing these defenses on site." Thex's primary speaking orifice contracted in what Jake had learned was a gesture of dismissal. "The Council has reviewed your evidence, Ambassador. While regrettable, these incidents do not rise to the level requiring modification of existing territorial agreements. The Kepler system remains designated as a limited development zone under Provision 5291C. Jake had expected this. "With respect, High Counselor, Provision 5291C explicitly allows for security exceptions when loss of sapient life exceeds 1,000 individuals per standard year. We have documented 7 times that number. In incidents that your own security forces should have prevented," came a voice from the Draconian section. Ambassador Kresh, enormous and reptilian, leaned forward. "Perhaps if humans spent more resources on defenses and less on rapid expansion, such tragedies would not occur." Jake kept his expression neutral, despite the surge of anger. The Draconians had blocked 3 separate trade agreements that would have provided Earth with the very defensive technology they now criticized humans for lacking. "The Council cannot be expected to rewrite territorial agreements each time a young species faces challenges," Thex added. "Earth knew the development restrictions when colonizing Kepler." Jake nodded solemnly. "Indeed, High Counselor. That is why Earth is not requesting a territory renegotiation, but is invoking Emergency Provision 47 Alpha, the Imminent Extinction Protocol." That got their attention. Even Thex's 8th eye swiveled away from his data stream. "Explain yourself, Ambassador," Thex demanded. "Extinction Protocol applies only to civilizations facing total collapse. Jake tapped his console, and the holographic displays shifted to show population projections. If current attack patterns continue, and if we remain unable to establish adequate defenses, the human settlements in Kepler will be completely destroyed within 5 years. Given that Kepler houses 30% of our off-Earth population and 60% of our resource production capacity, this constitutes an extinction-level threat to humanity's interstellar presence. Technically true, which was the best kind of true in council proceedings. A bold interpretation, murmured the Alteran representative. Sophia, her luminescent skin pulsing with what Jake recognized as approval. The Alterans had been humanity's first allies, helping Earth recover from the climate wars of the 23rd century. Their support now would be crucial. Thex conferred with several advisors before responding. Very well. The Council will consider your invocation of Protocol 47 Alpha. We shall put it to vote immediately, as the protocol requires. Jake maintained his diplomatic composure, but internally, he allowed himself a small victory. An immediate vote was procedurally advantageous. It prevented the usual weeks of lobbying and favor trading that inevitably worked against humanity's interests. Representatives, Thex announced. The question before you: shall Earth be granted emergency rights to establish military and extraction operations in the Kepler asteroid belt, KX 594, under Protocol 47 Alpha? Cast your votes now. The Great Hall fell silent as representatives interfaced with their consoles. Jake watched the massive display above, showing the tallying votes in real time. Red for against, blue for approval, white for abstention. Red dots began to dominate the display. The Draconians, predictably, voted against. The Mur Collective and the Silicon Consciousness followed suit. Jake had expected this opposition. What he hadn't expected was the sea of white abstentions that followed. The Alterans, their supposed allies, abstained. The Tyrillian Consortium abstained. Even the Proxima Coalition, whose trade routes relied on human stability, abstained. When the voting ended, the result was unmistakable. 215 against, 42 in favor, 243 abstentions. Thex didn't bother hiding his satisfaction. The Council has spoken. Ambassador Morrison, your petition is denied. The Kepler system restrictions remain in place. The Council recommends Earth focus on improving its defensive capabilities within existing parameters. Jake stood perfectly still, processing the betrayal. 15 years of diplomatic service had taught him to recognize when a door was permanently closed. This was such a moment. He looked directly at Sophia, the Alteran representative. May I ask why our oldest allies abstained? Sophia's skin dimmed apologetically. The Kepler situation is complex. Ambassador, while we sympathize with Earth's position, establishing such a precedent could destabilize other regions. We hope to find a more measured solution. Politics. Always politics. Jake nodded once, then turned back to Thex. High Counselor, representatives of the Galactic Council, I thank you for your consideration. His voice was calm, betraying none of the fury and desperation roiling within him. In light of this decision, I am instructed to deliver a message from Earth President Mary Collins. Jake tapped his console again, and his official credentials appeared on the main display, authenticating what would come next. As of this moment, Stardate 2475.142, Earth and all human colonies formally withdraw from the Galactic Council and its associated treaties. The chamber erupted in chaos. Thex pounded his ceremonial staff for order, but the shock had spread too quickly. Jake continued, his voice cutting through the uproar. Humanity will no longer recognize Council authority over human territories or activities. We will defend our people by whatever means necessary, with or without Council approval. This is outrageous, Thex bellowed. Withdrawal requires a formal petition and transition period of no less than 5 standard years. Jake allowed himself the smallest smile. I refer the High Counselor to Membership Statute 12, Paragraph 7. Any species facing extinction due to Council inaction retains the right of immediate withdrawal. By denying our Extinction Protocol petition, you have certified our eligibility for this clause. 15 years of studying Council law had finally paid off. Jake watched as Thex conferred frantically with his advisors, who were already pulling up the relevant texts. This is a dangerous misinterpretation, Thex stammered. Nevertheless, it is binding, Jake replied. Humanity withdraws from the Council, effective immediately. We will, of course, maintain diplomatic channels for those who wish to establish bilateral relations with Earth. With that, Jake stepped down from the pedestal, ignoring the eruption of voices behind him. He walked steadily toward the exit, back straight, eyes forward. Only when the massive doors closed behind him did he allow his shoulders to slump. Admiral Lisa Carter and Director Paul Hayes waited in the antechamber, their expressions tense. It's done, Jake said simply. Admiral Carter nodded grimly. The President received the vote tally. Operation Lazarus is already underway. How long have we got? Jake asked, as they walked swiftly toward their transport. The Draconians were already mobilizing before the vote, Director Hayes replied, checking his secure tablet. Intelligence suggests they'll make their move within 6 months, possibly sooner. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. And our preparations? Admiral Carter's expression hardened. The restricted research projects have been greenlit. Quantum weaponry, space-time folding drives, the Gaia Artificial Intelligence Initiative, everything the Council forbade. The colonies have been preparing for this day for decades. Ambassador, underground manufacturing, hidden research facilities. We're not starting from zero. What about Kepler? Jake asked. Evacuation is impossible, Hayes said. But Operation Lazarus includes defensive measures that will surprise our friends in the Council. Jake looked between them. Do I want to know the details? Carter smiled thinly. Plausible deniability. Ambassador. For now, focus on managing the diplomatic fallout. Buy us time. Their transport hummed to life, breaking away from the Council station. Through the viewport, Jake watched the massive structure recede, a gleaming monument to a 12,000-year-old order that had just begun its decline. He thought of the 7,000 dead in Kepler, of the colonies left vulnerable by Council restrictions, of 15 years spent mastering rules designed to keep humanity in its place. No regrets? Hayes asked quietly. Jake shook his head. None. It was always going to end this way. We just needed to be ready when it did. As their ship accelerated toward the jump point, Jake Morrison, the last human ambassador to the Galactic Council, turned his gaze toward Earth. And for the first time in 15 years, he felt something like hope. 3 months passed in a blur of frenetic activity. Jake found himself reassigned to the newly formed Sovereign Defense Initiative, working directly under President Collins to coordinate the massive reorganization of human space. The SDI headquarters, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth, buzzed with round-the-clock activity. Holographic displays showed the status of human colonies spread across 12 star systems, each one now frantically building defenses that would have been impossible under Council restrictions. New Montana reports their subterranean manufacturing complex is at 87% capacity, reported Colonel Jameson, pointing to the status board. The shell installations are complete, and they've begun populating the false surface structures. Jake nodded, studying the elaborate deception taking shape on the frontier world. From orbit, New Montana would appear to be a typical human agricultural colony. The reality, vast underground military installations and weapons platforms, would remain hidden until needed. What about the AI integration? Jake asked. Gaia subsystems are online at 4 primary locations, Director Hayes answered, joining them at the display. The personality matrix is still stabilizing, but the defense and analysis subroutines are functioning at optimal levels. Jake suppressed a shudder. The Gaia Project, a fully sentient artificial intelligence designed to coordinate humanity's defenses, was perhaps the most severe violation of Council technology restrictions. The memories of the Silicon Wars still haunted the older species, their fear of independent machine intelligence bordering on religious prohibition. "And our intelligence network?" Jake asked. Hayes grimaced. "Mixed results. We've lost access to most Council information channels, but our deep cover agents remain in place. The latest reports suggest the Draconians are accelerating their timetable. Their 7th Fleet is already mobilizing near the Arcturus Gateway. Timeline? 2 months, maybe less." Jake ran a hand through his hair, now showing streaks of premature gray. "Faster than we expected. What about New Seattle? That's the most likely target." "Phase 2. Preparations are at 92%. Colonel Jameson replied. "The lunar platform is fully operational, though we're maintaining minimal power to avoid detection. Surface settlements are being hardened, but we're maintaining the appearance of normal activity." A priority alert flashed across the main display. Admiral Carter strode into the command center, her expression grim. "The Red Claw pirate fleet has vanished," she announced without preamble. The room fell silent. The Red Claw mercenaries had been responsible for the attacks on Kepler that had precipitated humanity's withdrawal from the Council. "Vanished how?" Jake asked carefully. "Completely," Carter replied. "Their bases in the Oort cloud are abandoned. Their known vessels are unaccounted for. They've gone dark simultaneously across 3 sectors." Hayes and Jake exchanged significant looks. The implications were clear. The pirates had likely been proxies all along, deniable assets used to pressure humanity while maintaining Council deniability. "The Draconians," Jake said quietly. Carter nodded. "Most likely. Our analysts believe the Red Claw forces have been absorbed into their fleet. It would explain the acceleration of their timeline." Jake turned to the strategic display. "Then we need to accelerate ours. What's the status of the Kepler defensive grid?" "Fully operational," Jameson replied. "Though we've kept it powered down to avoid detection. The moment we activate it, we lose the element of surprise." "And the Lazarus Protocol?" Admiral Carter hesitated. "Ready, but untested in actual combat conditions. The simulations are promising, but—" Jake understood her reluctance. The Lazarus Protocol represented humanity's most classified and ethically questionable research, technology that existed in the theoretical gray area between Council science and what many species would consider supernatural. "We won't get a second chance," Jake said quietly. "If the Draconians come in force, it's all or nothing." The Admiral nodded gravely. "President Collins has already signed the authorization. If the Draconians attack any human settlement, Lazarus will be initiated immediately." Jake stared at the holographic display of human space. 12 star systems, billions of lives, the culmination of 3 centuries of expansion beyond Earth. All of it now balanced on the edge of a knife. "Then we wait," he said, "and we pray we're ready." Captain Zethar of Council Intelligence found the human embassy strangely quiet. Since Earth's dramatic withdrawal, most of the staff had been recalled, leaving only a skeleton diplomatic presence. The building, once bustling with human culture and commerce, now stood as a hollow reminder of the fracture in galactic politics. Zethar's translucent skin rippled with discomfort as he was led through empty corridors. As a Lysithian, he prided himself on his empathic abilities, but the humans had always been unusually difficult to read. Today, the remaining staff projected nothing but calm professionalism, suspicious in itself. The human liaison, Sarah Chenwallace, greeted him in a small conference room. "Captain Zethar, this is unexpected. The Council hasn't responded to our communiques in weeks." Zethar settled his elongated form into the specially designed chair. "This is not an official Council visit, Ms. Chenwallace. I come in a personal capacity." Sarah's expression revealed nothing. I see. How can I help you then? Information has come to my attention that I believe warrants sharing. Zethar chose his words carefully. The Draconian Empire has been granted emergency powers by the Security Council to address what they term the human separatist threat. Sarah remained impassive. We're aware of the Draconians' posturing. This is not posturing, Zethar insisted. They have mobilized their entire 7th Fleet, over 1,000 capital ships. Their target is the human colony of New Seattle. Why are you telling me this? Sarah asked, her voice level. Zethar's skin flushed with patterns of concern. Because I have served the Council for 200 years. Ms. Chenwallace, I have seen civilizations rise and fall. What is happening now? It violates the foundational principles of the Council. The Council voted, Sarah reminded him. They chose not to protect human lives. Many abstained, Zethar countered. Not all agree with the current direction. Yet none opposed it strongly enough to matter. There was a hint of bitterness in her voice now. Zethar leaned forward. The Draconians expect an easy victory. They believe that by crushing your strongest outer colony, they will force Earth back into the Council on punitive terms. And what do you believe, Captain? Zethar hesitated. I believe something is not right. Our intelligence shows unusual energy patterns in your colonies. Materials being moved that do not match your official production reports. And there are rumors. Disturbing rumors about research Earth has conducted in secret. Sarah's expression hardened. Captain, for 80 years humanity played by the Council's rules. We were restricted from developing technologies that could have saved thousands of lives. We were denied resources on worlds we discovered. We were treated as children at a table of adults. Those days are over. Whatever you're planning, Zethar said quietly. The Draconians are coming with overwhelming force. No conventional defense could possibly succeed against 1,000 capital ships. Sarah stood, signaling the end of their meeting. Thank you for your concern, Captain. I'll ensure your warning reaches the appropriate authorities. Zethar rose reluctantly. The attack will come within 30 days. Ms. Chenwallace, whatever preparations your people have made, I hope they are sufficient. As the Lysithian was escorted out, he couldn't shake the feeling that the human hadn't been surprised by his warning. Worse, beneath her careful diplomatic mask, he had sensed something he rarely encountered in humans: absolute confidence. The Draconian 7th Fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 1,000 ships arranged in the traditional claw pattern that had conquered dozens of worlds during the Empire's bloody expansion centuries earlier. At the formation's heart, the massive dreadnought, Eternal Flame, carried Emperor Admiral Zastrix himself, come to witness humanity's subjugation firsthand. New Seattle hung before them, the jewel of humanity's outer colonies, home to 30 million humans. The terraformed world gleamed blue and green against the darkness of space. Its single moon orbited placidly, showing no signs of the extensive defensive installations that Council intelligence had suspected might exist. On the bridge of the Eternal Flame, Emperor Admiral Zastrix studied the tactical display with all 4 of his primary eyes, his secondary set scanning the sensor readings. No defensive fleet, he noted with a rumble of disappointment. No orbital platforms. Have they truly left their most valuable colony undefended? Fleet Commander Vex, positioned respectfully to his ruler's left, checked the sensor data again. Our scans detect normal civilian traffic patterns, Your Eminence. There are minimal orbital defense satellites, consistent with standard colonial protection. Nothing that could threaten even our smallest vessels. Zastrix's scaled brow furrowed. The humans withdrew from the Council. They claimed they would defend themselves by any means necessary. Yet they present no defense at all. Perhaps they were bluffing, Vex suggested. Or perhaps their preparations are focused elsewhere. Perhaps, Zastrix mused, not entirely convinced. Commence the attack sequence. Target their primary spaceport and government centers first. I want minimal civilian casualties. We need the infrastructure intact for occupation." "By your command," Vex replied, relaying the orders to the fleet. The first wave of Draconian bombers descended toward New Seattle's atmosphere. 200 craft moving in precise formation. They encountered no resistance, no defensive fire as they entered the upper atmosphere. On the planet's surface, the residents of New Seattle went about their business under blue skies. The massive agricultural domes on the western continent shimmered in the sunlight. Spaceport traffic continued uninterrupted. There was no panic, no emergency alerts, nothing to indicate awareness of the Armada now positioning itself for attack. "Something is wrong," Zastrix muttered, his instincts, honed through decades of military campaigns, screaming warnings. "This is too easy." Before Fleet Commander Vex could respond, the tactical officer called out, "Energy spike detected from the moon, Your Eminence." "What?" Zastrix whirled toward the main view screen. "Magnify!" The image of New Seattle's moon expanded, and for a breathtaking moment, nothing seemed amiss. Then, like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis, the lunar surface began to crack and separate. Massive sections peeled away, revealing the structure beneath. Not a natural satellite at all, but an artificial construct of staggering proportions. "Full alert!" Zastrix roared. "All ships, evasive maneuvers!" But it was already too late. The artificial moon surface had fully retracted, revealing what appeared to be an enormous dish-like structure. At its center, energy coalesced into a pulsing blue-white sphere of impossible brightness. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer, scales pale with fear. "Put it through," Zastrix ordered, his voice steady despite the mounting dread. A human face appeared on screen, Admiral Lisa Carter, her expression grave but determined. "Emperor Admiral Zastrix, the colony of New Seattle is under the protection of the Sovereign Defense Initiative. Your fleet is in violation of sovereign human space. You are ordered to withdraw immediately." Zastrix's facial scales flared in anger. "You dare to threaten the Draconian Empire? Your primitive defenses cannot stand against 1,000 ships." Admiral Carter's expression didn't change. "This is not a threat, Emperor Admiral. It is the only warning you will receive. Withdraw now, or we will be forced to demonstrate capabilities that the Council has never witnessed." Zastrix cut the transmission with a slashing gesture. "All ships, target that lunar installation! Full bombardment!" The Draconian fleet responded instantly, 1,000 weapon systems locking onto the revealed lunar structure. But before they could fire, the blue-white energy at the moon's center pulsed once, twice, and expanded outward in a coherent wave. The wave wasn't visible in normal space. Rather, it manifested as a rippling distortion, as if reality itself was being folded and unfolded in rapid succession. It passed through the first line of Draconian ships without apparent effect. Then, silently and without explosion or debris, 20 Draconian vessels simply ceased to exist. "What happened?" Zastrix demanded, his voice rising in unprecedented alarm. "Where are our ships?" The tactical display showed only empty space where the Vanguard had been positioned. No debris field, no energy readings, no emergency beacons, just emptiness, as if the ships had never existed at all. The second wave of energy expanded from the lunar installation. This time, 50 ships vanished from existence. "Impossible," breathed Fleet Commander Vex. "No weapon can... This defies all known physics." Zastrix stared at the tactical display in horror as a third wave emerged, erasing another 100 ships from reality. The proud Draconian formation was disintegrating, ships attempting to flee in all directions, abandoning centuries of military discipline in the face of incomprehensible destruction. "All ships, retreat!" Zastrix ordered, his imperial composure shattered. "Emergency hyperspace jump, now!" The surviving Draconian vessels scrambled to comply, their engines flaring as they attempted to escape. Some succeeded, tearing holes in space-time and vanishing into the safety of hyperspace. Others were caught by subsequent waves from the lunar weapon, disappearing without trace or announcement. On the bridge of the Eternal Flame, Emperor Admiral Zastrix watched in stunned silence as his magnificent fleet, the pride of the Draconian Empire, was systematically erased from existence. A weapon that violated the fundamental laws of physics as understood by the Council races. A weapon that didn't destroy, but rather removed. "Your Eminence," Vex urged, "we must retreat while we still can." Zastrix nodded numbly, all thoughts of conquest forgotten. "Execute emergency jump. Return to Draconis Prime immediately." As the massive dreadnought's engines powered up for hyperspace transition, Zastrix fixed his gaze on the innocuous-looking planet that had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "What have they done?" he whispered. "What have the humans become?" The Eternal Flame vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind the scattered remnants of the once mighty Seventh Fleet, and a galaxy about to undergo a fundamental shift in its order. In the emergency session of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. Representatives from 500 worlds shouted over one another, demanded answers, threatened retaliation, or pleaded for calm, depending on their relationship with both humanity and the Draconian Empire. High Counselor Thex pounded his ceremonial staff repeatedly, but the pandemonium continued unabated. Reports of the disaster at New Seattle had spread across the galaxy within hours, each version more alarming than the last. The only consistent detail was the most terrifying. Nearly 800 Draconian warships had simply vanished, removed from existence by technology that could not exist. "Order!" Thex bellowed, his voice amplified to painful levels. "The Council will come to order!" Gradually, the chamber quieted, though the tension remained palpable. "The Council has received official notification from the Draconian Empire," Thex announced, his voice strained. "Emperor Admiral Zastrix confirms the loss of approximately 800 vessels from the Seventh Fleet during an incident at the human colony New Seattle." Incident. The Alteran representative, Sophia, rose from her seat, her luminescent skin pulsing with agitation. "An unprovoked attack on a sovereign world is not an incident, High Counselor." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "The circumstances remain unclear," Thex hedged. "What is clear is that the humans have deployed technology expressly forbidden by Council mandate. Technology with implications that threaten the very fabric of our galactic community. Technology they developed after we refused to protect them," came a voice from the Tyrillian section. "Technology they would not have needed had we honored our obligations." The accusation hung in the air, unanswered and damning. "The question before us," Thex continued, ignoring the interruption, "is how to respond to this grave situation. The Security Council proposes immediate sanctions against all human worlds, a blockade of human space, and the formation of a coalition fleet to—" "To what?" Sophia interrupted. "To suffer the same fate as the Draconians? Did you not hear the reports? 800 ships erased from existence without a trace. No debris, no radiation, no remains, just gone." Uncomfortable silence followed her words. "We have received a communication from Earth," Thex said finally. "They have requested permission to address the Council." Surprised murmurs filled the chamber. After their dramatic withdrawal, few had expected the humans to seek audience with the Council again so soon. "I move that we hear what they have to say," Sophia declared formally. "Seconded," called the Proxima representative immediately. Thex looked as though he had swallowed something bitter, but protocol left him no choice. "The motion carries. Connect the Earth transmission." The central holographic display activated, and to the shock of many present, the face that appeared was not President Collins or some unknown military leader, but Jake Morrison, the same ambassador who had walked out of the council 3 months earlier. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Council," Jake began, his tone measured and formal. "I speak to you today in the capacity of Special Envoy of the Sovereign Defense Initiative." "Ambassador Morrison," Thex replied coldly. "Or should I say, Special Envoy. The Council recognizes your transmission." Jake nodded. "I'll be brief. 3 months ago, I stood before you and warned that humanity faced an extinction-level threat. You dismissed that warning. Yesterday, a draconian fleet of 1,000 capital ships attempted to destroy the human colony of New Seattle, home to 30 million civilians. No one in the council chamber spoke. This unprovoked act of aggression was met with a proportional defensive response." Jake continued. "The SDI's defensive systems eliminated the immediate threat while minimizing loss of life. The draconian flagship and approximately 200 vessels were allowed to retreat unharmed, as our quarrel was not with their civilization, only with those who threatened our people." "Eliminated is an interesting choice of words," Thex interjected. "Your weapon violated fundamental laws of physics as understood by Council science. Such technology is expressly forbidden by Council regulations that no longer apply to us." Jake finished for him. "As I made clear during my last appearance before you, humanity is no longer bound by Council restrictions. We will defend ourselves by any means necessary." "Where are the draconian ships and their crews?" demanded the Mer representative, whiskers quivering with agitation. "What have you done with them?" Jake's expression remained neutral. "I am not authorized to discuss the specifics of our defensive capabilities. What I can tell you is that the threat has been neutralized without causing unnecessary suffering. The implication hung in the air, that humanity now possessed technology so advanced it could make matter itself cease to exist, or perhaps transfer it elsewhere, beyond the reach of conventional reality." "Why have you contacted the Council?" Thex asked finally. "To threaten us as well?" Jake shook his head. "Quite the opposite, High Counselor. I am authorized to inform you that despite recent events, humanity has no hostile intentions toward the Council or its member worlds. We seek only to exist in peace and to defend what is ours." "Pretty words," rumbled the draconian representative, who had remained silent until now. "While you possess a weapon of unimaginable power." "A weapon we used only when attacked, and with restraint," Jake countered. "Your Emperor Admiral lives. Many of your ships were permitted to retreat unharmed. We could have eliminated your entire fleet. Indeed, we could have targeted Draconis Prime itself. We did not." The draconian representative had no response to this chilling truth. "Humanity extends an open invitation to any council race wishing to establish bilateral relations with us." Jake continued. "We remain open to trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense pacts with those who recognize our sovereignty." "Are you offering protection?" Cephia asked, her tone carefully neutral. Jake nodded. "To our allies, yes. The SDI's capabilities are significant, as has been demonstrated. We would prefer to use them for defense rather than conflict." The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations. The implications were staggering. In a single day, humanity had transformed from the council's newest and most junior member to potentially its most powerful independent force. "One final note," Jake added, silencing the chamber once more. "We are aware that certain elements within the Council facilitated and encouraged the draconian attack. Those responsible should understand. Humanity does not seek revenge, but we will not forget. Any future aggression against human worlds will be met with the same response the Draconians received, precisely proportional to the threat posed." With that implicit warning hanging in the air, Jake bowed slightly. "That concludes my message. Earth out." The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. After a long moment, Thex spoke, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. The Council will recess for one standard day to consider this development. As representatives filed out of the chamber, many were already activating private communications channels, contacting their governments with urgent updates and recommendations. The balance of power had shifted overnight, and no one wanted to be on the wrong side of the new reality. In the Alteran section, Sophia remained seated, her skin pulsing with complex emotions. She had known Jake Morrison for 15 years, had considered him a friend despite the political realities that had forced her abstention during the crucial vote. Now she found herself wondering how much of humanity's capabilities had been hidden even from their allies, and what it meant for the future of galactic politics. One thing was certain: the day mankind departed the Galactic Council was the day the universe changed forever. 1 month after the New Seattle incident, Jake Morrison found himself in a position he had never anticipated, seated at the center of the Galactic Council's speaking platform, not as a petitioner, but as an honored guest. The obsidian floor that had once reflected his isolation now mirrored the anxious faces of hundreds of representatives, their attention focused entirely on the human before them. High Counselor Thex had been replaced. His successor, a Tyrillian named Vora, was known for her pragmatic approach to galactic politics. She addressed the assembly with none of her predecessor's pomposity. Representatives of the Council, we are honored to welcome Special Envoy Morrison of the Sovereign Defense Initiative. He comes before us not as a supplicant, but as the voice of a power whose friendship we now earnestly seek. The formal acknowledgement, unthinkable just months ago, sent a ripple of murmurs through the chamber. Jake maintained his diplomatic composure, though inwardly he marveled at how completely the tables had turned. "Thank you, High Counselor," Jake replied. "Humanity appreciates the opportunity to address the Council in this new capacity." He surveyed the chamber, noting how representatives who had once ignored him now leaned forward attentively, how those who had dismissed human concerns now watched with barely concealed apprehension. 3 months ago, I stood before you and announced humanity's withdrawal from the Council. Today, I am authorized to propose a new relationship, not a return to our former status, but a cooperative agreement between equals. The chamber remained silent, captivated. The Sovereign Defense Initiative has approved the formation of the Human Alliance, an association of independent worlds united by mutual defense agreements and free trade. We extend an invitation to any Council world that wishes to join this alliance while maintaining their Council membership. Counselor Vora couldn't hide her surprise. "You propose to create a parallel structure to the Council itself?" "Not parallel," Jake corrected gently. "Complementary. Council membership offers many benefits: cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, dispute mediation. The Alliance offers something the Council has proven unable to provide: absolute security for its members." The implication was clear, backed by humanity's now demonstrated defensive capabilities. Alliance members would enjoy protection from aggression that the Council's convoluted politics had failed to deliver. "And the terms of this alliance?" Vora asked carefully. "Simple," Jake replied. "Respect for sovereignty, non-aggression, free trade without punitive tariffs, technology sharing where mutually beneficial, joint defense against external threats." "And the defense technologies demonstrated at New Seattle?" asked the Proxima representative. "Will those be shared as well?" Jake smiled diplomatically. "Some aspects of our defensive systems remain classified, just as I'm certain each of your worlds maintains technological secrets. However, Alliance members will benefit from enhanced protection utilizing these systems." In diplomatic terms, it was a masterful non-answer. The protection would be extended, but the technology itself would remain exclusively human, ensuring humanity's continued leverage. "We have received preliminary membership inquiries from 27 worlds," Jake continued, allowing that number to sink in. More than 5% of the Council had already expressed interest, without knowing the full details. The first formal signing ceremony will take place on Earth in 2 standard weeks. Counselor Vora glanced at her advisors before responding. This is unprecedented. The Council's charter does not explicitly forbid such arrangements, but the implications are far-reaching. Indeed, Jake agreed, which is why I am also authorized to extend a special invitation to the Council itself. The chamber fell completely silent. The Galactic Council, as an entity, is invited to apply for observer status within the Human Alliance. This would facilitate coordination between our organizations and help prevent potential conflicts of interest for worlds holding dual membership. It was, in diplomatic terms, a breathtaking power move. The Council, the 12,000-year-old authority that had once dictated terms to humanity, was being offered a subordinate role in humanity's new order. Jake could see the shock on many faces, the outrage on others, and, most interestingly, the calculating acceptance on a significant number. The pragmatists were already adapting to the new reality. The Council will need to deliberate on this extraordinary proposal, Vora said finally. Jake nodded. Of course. Earth understands this represents a significant adjustment in our relationships. We are prepared to be patient, to a point. The subtle warning was not lost on anyone present. If there are no immediate questions, I will take my leave, Jake continued. Detailed information packets regarding Alliance membership have been transmitted to all Council representatives. Those with serious interest are encouraged to contact the Earth Embassy directly. As Jake stepped down from the platform, the Council chamber remained unnaturally quiet. No procedural objections were raised, no points of order called. The representatives of 500 worlds watched in silence as the human walked confidently toward the exit. The same exit he had used 3 months earlier when storming out of the Council. But now, used with the measured pace of someone who knew the balance of power had irrevocably shifted. In the antechamber, Admiral Carter waited, her uniform immaculate and her expression carefully neutral. Well, she asked quietly, as they walked toward their transport. Exactly as expected, Jake replied. Shock, followed by the beginning of acceptance. The pragmatists are already calculating the benefits of Alliance membership. The idealists are horrified, but powerless to stop it. And the Draconians? Jake's expression hardened. Their representative was present but silent. Our intelligence suggests their empire is in disarray, following the loss of the 7th Fleet. Internal power struggles have broken out among the regional governors. They won't be a threat again, at least not directly. They boarded the diplomatic shuttle, which now bore the emblem of the Sovereign Defense Initiative, rather than the old Earth Council delegation insignia. The President's approval ratings are at 96%, Carter noted, as they settled into their seats. The colonial legislatures are unanimously supportive. Even the traditional anti-militarists have fallen in line following the draconian attack. Jake nodded absently, his thoughts elsewhere. Something's bothering you, Carter observed. We've won, Jake. Everything we planned for, everything we hoped to achieve, it's happening faster than our most optimistic projections. That's what bothers me, Jake admitted. It's too easy. The Council is folding without significant resistance. The Draconians retreated and haven't attempted retaliation. The other major powers are rushing to join our alliance. What are we missing? Carter considered this. Perhaps we're not missing anything. The Lazarus Protocol worked exactly as designed. The galaxy has seen what we're capable of, and they're responding rationally by aligning with the strongest power. Maybe, Jake conceded. Or maybe they're playing for time while looking for weaknesses, countermeasures. Let them look, Carter said confidently. The Gaia system has run billions of simulations. There are no countermeasures to quantum displacement technology, at least none that could be developed within the next century. Their shuttle broke away from the Council station, accelerating toward the jump point. Through the viewport, Jake watched the massive structure recede, still impressive in its scale and grandeur, but no longer intimidating. no longer the seat of an authority that could dictate humanity's future. "What's our next move?" he asked. "The President wants you to oversee the alliance formation ceremony," Carter replied. "After that, we begin Phase 3 of the Lazarus Protocol." Jake turned to her sharply. "Phase 3? I thought the defensive systems were the entirety of Lazarus." Carter's expression was unreadable. "The defensive capabilities demonstrated at New Seattle were Phase 1. The alliance formation is Phase 2, consolidating our diplomatic position. Phase 3 is something else entirely. Should I be concerned?" Carter smiled thinly. "Let's just say that removing ships from reality was just the beginning of what Gaia has helped us develop. The President will brief you personally when we return to Earth." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Not fear, exactly, but a sense of standing on the edge of something vast and unknowable. Humanity had leaped forward in ways he was only beginning to comprehend. As their ship accelerated toward the jump point, Jake Morrison, Special Envoy of the Sovereign Defense Initiative and architect of humanity's new position in the galaxy, found himself wondering about the responsibility that came with such power. The Council's restrictions had been frustrating, often unjust, but perhaps some of their caution had been warranted. "We'll need to be careful," he said quietly. "Power like this changes those who wield it." Admiral Carter nodded solemnly. "That's why we need people like you, Jake. People who remember what it was like to be powerless. People who won't abuse what we've gained." Jake wasn't entirely convinced, but as the stars streaked into lines around their ship, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had secured its place in the galaxy. The colonies would be safe. The Council's dismissive attitude toward human lives had been answered with a demonstration of power they could not ignore. For now, that would have to be enough. 2 years after humanity's departure from the Galactic Council, the Great Hall on Earth hosted representatives from over 200 worlds. Once designed to mimic the Council's imposing architecture, it had been redesigned to reflect humanity's new philosophy: open, accessible, with representatives seated in a circular arrangement that emphasized equality rather than hierarchy. Jake Morrison, now serving as the first Secretary General of the Human Alliance, stood at the center of the assembly. Age and responsibility had added silver to his temples and lines around his eyes. But his posture remained straight, his voice strong as he addressed the gathered delegates. "Distinguished representatives, honored guests, today marks the 2nd anniversary of the Alliance's formation. In that time, we have welcomed 197 member worlds and established mutual defense agreements that have resulted in the longest period without significant interstellar conflict in recorded galactic history." Applause rippled through the chamber. Seated in a position of honor, High Counselor Vora of the Galactic Council offered a diplomatic nod. The Council had, after 6 months of debate, accepted observer status within the Alliance, a tacit acknowledgement of the new power reality. "We have also," Jake continued, "overseen the peaceful resolution of 17 territorial disputes, established free trade routes that have increased economic activity by an average of 22% across member worlds, and deployed defensive installations that have reduced piracy by 94% in protected sectors." The achievements were impressive by any standard, but Jake knew they were secondary to the true foundation of the Alliance's success: the implicit guarantee of protection offered by humanity's still mysterious defensive capabilities. In 2 years, no power had dared to directly challenge an Alliance member, not after what had happened to the draconian 7th Fleet. "Yet our work has only begun," Jake continued. "Today, I am pleased to announce the next phase of the Alliance's development: the Cooperative Advancement Initiative." Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing schematics for new technologies, medical systems, environmental restoration processes, efficient energy production methods. These innovations, developed through collaboration between human and non-human scientists, will be made freely available to all Alliance members. Jake explained. They represent our commitment, not just to security, but to prosperity and progress for all. What he didn't mention, what only the highest levels of Alliance leadership knew, was that these technologies were just the first, carefully selected offerings from the vast repository of knowledge that Gaia had helped humanity develop. Phase 3 of the Lazarus Protocol had yielded breakthroughs that went far beyond weapon systems, breakthroughs that could transform civilizations if deployed judiciously. As the presentation concluded, Jake opened the floor for questions. The Altaran representative, Sophia, was the first to speak. Secretary General, the technologies you've shared today are impressive, but questions remain about the defensive systems that formed the original basis for the Alliance. 2 years have passed since the New Seattle incident, yet humanity has shared almost no information about these capabilities. Many Council worlds remain hesitant to join the Alliance, partly due to this secrecy. Jake nodded. Having anticipated this line of questioning, Ambassador Sophia, I understand your concerns. The technologies demonstrated at New Seattle represent capabilities that require significant safeguards. We continue to evaluate appropriate sharing protocols. With respect, Sophia pressed. Many believe that humanity is maintaining a deliberate technological advantage to ensure its dominance within the Alliance structure. There was an uncomfortable shifting among the delegates. The question touched on concerns that many harbored, but few had voiced openly. Jake took a moment before responding. 2.5 years ago, I stood before the Galactic Council and begged for permission to defend human colonies from attacks that had already cost thousands of lives. That permission was denied. 3 months later, 1,000 draconian ships attempted to destroy a human world of 30 million souls. The chamber was utterly silent now. Humanity developed these defensive capabilities out of necessity, not desire for dominance. Jake continued. We use them only to protect, never to conquer, never to coerce. Yes, we maintain certain technological advantages, just as many of your worlds maintain your own unique capabilities and secrets. The difference is that we extend the protection of our technology to all Alliance members equally. It was a diplomatic answer that acknowledged the reality without apologizing for it. Humanity had learned the hard way that in a dangerous galaxy, power was sometimes necessary for survival. I would remind the Assembly, Jake added, that membership in the Alliance is entirely voluntary. We have never forced any world to join, nor penalized those who choose to remain solely within the Council structure. We offer protection and partnership. Nothing more, nothing less. Sophia inclined her head, accepting the response if not entirely satisfied by it. As the session continued, Jake found his thoughts drifting to the journey that had brought humanity to this point. From the desperate colonies in Kepler to the confident power now orchestrating a new galactic order. From begging for scraps at the Council table to offering protection to those same Council worlds. When the formal proceedings concluded, Jake made his way to a private meeting room where Admiral Carter, now Supreme Commander of Alliance Defense Forces, waited with Director Hayes and President Collins. A successful presentation, President Collins noted as Jake entered. The economic package was particularly well received. Jake nodded. They're more comfortable discussing trade than defense technology. It's less threatening. Speaking of which, Hayes interjected. Gaia has completed the analysis of the draconian movements near the Arcturus sector. They're rebuilding their fleet, but showing no signs of aggressive intent toward Alliance space. And the Council? Jake asked. Still debating whether to accept full membership rather than observer status, Carter replied. Their traditionalist faction is fighting it, but the pragmatists are gaining ground. Another year, maybe less. Jake moved to the window, looking out over the rebuilt Washington skyline, now featuring architectural influences from a dozen alien cultures, a visible symbol of Earth's new cosmopolitan status as the center of the alliance. "Sometimes I wonder if we've gone too far," he admitted quietly. "The quantum displacement technology, the Gaia system, the Phase 3 breakthroughs. We've advanced further in 3 years than the Council did in centuries." "We had no choice," President Collins reminded him. "You saw what happened when we played by their rules." "I know," Jake agreed. "But power like this comes with tremendous responsibility. The technology we're keeping classified could transform worlds, or destroy them. That's why we're proceeding cautiously," Carter said. "The medical and environmental technologies we're sharing now will save billions of lives across the Alliance. The more advanced systems will follow when we're certain they won't be misused." Jake turned back to face them. "And the defensive technology? Will we ever share that?" The three exchanged glances before Hayes answered. "Gaia recommends against it for at least 50 years. The risks of proliferation are too great." Jake nodded, having expected this answer. "Then, we'd better make damn sure we use it wisely. The moment we become what we fought against, the moment we start using our power to dominate rather than protect, we lose everything that makes this alliance worthwhile." "That's why you're in charge of diplomacy," President Collins said with a small smile. "To keep the military and intelligence branches honest." A gentle chime indicated that the next session of Alliance business was about to begin. Jake straightened his formal attire, preparing to return to his public role. 2 years ago, the day mankind departed the Galactic Council was the day the universe changed, he said thoughtfully. "Let's make sure it changed for the better." As he walked back toward the Great Hall, Jake Morrison reflected on how far humanity had come, and how far they still had to go. The Alliance was still young, the new galactic order still taking shape. Challenges would emerge, powers would rise and fall, and through it all, humanity would need to remember the lessons of its own history. The universe had indeed changed the day mankind departed the Galactic Council. It had become a place where humanity no longer needed anyone's permission to exist, but also a place where humanity bore the immense responsibility of its newfound power. Jake stepped back into the Great Hall, where representatives of 200 worlds waited for his leadership. The obsidian floor reflected the faces of a new galactic order, one shaped by humanity's determination never again to be the victim of others' indifference. "Let us continue," he announced to the assembly, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who had witnessed the universe transform and helped to guide that transformation. The day mankind departed the Galactic Council was the day the universe learned that even the youngest species could rise to reshape the stars.